Dragon Age Veilguard has come and gone. After 10 years of waiting, anticipation and theorizing. 10 years and now it's just over. I really went into this game trying to be positive. I really went looking for positive things about it before playing it. But after playing it, I really can think of only one word that aptly describes it. And that word is waste. What a waste. Wasted characters and wasted lore and wasted plot lines. And if you actually decide to play this game, you will all but certainly be wasting your time. Let me start with my conclusion, so not to waste any more of your time. If you are a Dragon Age Origins fan and you are looking for a game to scratch that itch, steer clear of this game. Not only will you not like Dragon Age Veilguard, this game will actively infuriate you. The only thing that Veilguard has in common with Dragon Age Origins is the name and the setting. There is nothing else in here that will give you any kind of satisfaction. If you are looking for a deep, nuanced role-playing game with branching paths and choices and consequences, then this is also not for you. What I would recommend is play Dragon Age Origins or replay it, then play or replay Baldur's Gate 3, then move on to something else you haven't played yet, and then you forget that Veilguard exists. If, however, you have no real passion or preference in terms of role-playing games, then yeah, maybe you'll find something here that can keep you busy for a few hours. Because ultimately, Dragon Age Veilguard is not an RPG. Dragon Age Veilguard is an action-adventure game. It is a linear action-adventure game with a set character. You cannot role-play. You cannot insert a role into the character of Rook and then play that way. It's just not possible. A game is not an RPG just because you have a progression system and dialogue options. That's just not how it works, especially these days. In my opinion, there's a combination of three things that makes a game an RPG. Firstly is conversational role-playing, then situational role-playing, and then choices and consequences. And Veilguard has none of that. Veilguard didn't have enough to keep me interested long enough to actually finish the game. I'm going to be honest, I have about 38 hours clocked in the game. Maybe about halfway through, started some of the companion quests, and I just tapped out. I just couldn't anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. This channel is centered around the question of, is a game worth your time? And that's a choice that I had to make because I am a Dragon Age Origins fan above all else in this respect. I am a fan of deep, nuanced RPGs. That's what I want in a game, and that's what I wanted in a Dragon Age game. And I had to choose, do I want to keep spending my time on this game? Do I want to keep dragging on this game that I'm not enjoying just for the purpose of a review? And I just couldn't do it anymore. The game just didn't have enough to keep my interest long enough to finish it. And I understand, like, the final 5 hours is apparently fantastic, but I'm okay with a game having a slow burn or having a slow start. Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of my favorite games ever. It takes a good 10 to 15 hours to really get going before the game clicks. That's okay. But I cannot, at the 35th hour, still be wondering, when is this game going to actually grab my attention? A game like that is just not worth it. Anyway, I'm just going to focus on one thing that really sticks out for me in this game. Because I'm sure you've heard all of the problems with this game in spades. Through all the other reviews, you must have heard by now, the writing is overall pretty terrible. The dialogue in general is just crap. The combat can be fun at times, but it ends up falling flat quite quickly when you realize it's basically just rinse and repeat of, attack, 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 launch a combo, attack, 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 do a combo. And the skill tree is actually laughable. If you look at it from a distance, it looks very impressive. You're like, oh, wow, look at all those little nodes. But then when you actually play the game and you realize from the middle of the skill tree all the way up to the specializations, there's maybe 4 active skills that you can actually pick and choose from. It's actually an extremely shallow skill tree. But anyway, that's not what I want to focus on. I don't want to focus on all the problems that's already been highlighted with this game. The thing that I want to talk about is the fact everywhere I went in this game, I just felt this could have been fantastic. That's the thing that really got to me with this game, is how conceptually it could have been the best Dragon Age we've ever played. It could have been that. But through bad design choices, bad creative direction, they ended up falling flat on every one of those concepts. Let's just look at the setting of the game. The north of Thedas, Tevinter, Weishaupt, Antiva, all of those places we've only heard about. We've only met people from those places, but we've never been there. And they have such rich and established lore. It could have been fantastic going to Tevinter. And if they really leaned into the lore about everything we know about Tevinter and what a terrible place and what a fantastic place it can be, if they really leaned into that, it could have been phenomenal. Weishaupt, the famed fortress of the Grey Wardens, and we go there and we basically get nothing. We go there for a little while and then it's destroyed and we see nothing of it. What a waste. What a waste. Like Antiva. We've known about Antiva and the Antivan Crows from Dragon Age Origins, and there's so much they could have done with that place. There's so much, but it just fell flat. It just felt empty. Initially, when you look at it, it's beautiful and there's a lot of people going around, but then you realize you can't talk to anyone. Not really. You cannot interact with the world. It's just set dressing. Antiva, the Antivan Crows, wasted opportunities. Then there's the characters. Again, conceptually, you have Lucanus, a non-mage that is possessed by a demon. Could have been brilliant. You have Emric, who is a necromancer from the Mornwatch. Nev, who, by the way, Nev ended up being a lot less insufferable than I expected. She was one of the slight highlights of the game, which is actually not as terrible as I expected it to be. But even she could have been so much better. This investigator from Tevinter, who's also a mage. I mean, you really could have just leaned into it, but they didn't. And I think it all comes down to how they just wanted to cleanse this game of anything remotely edgy. I don't want to use the word edgy. That's such a cliche word to use, but like they try to remove all the sharp edges. They try to remove anything that could be even remotely offensive. They took all these fantastic concepts and they just removed anything that could have been of interest to the player. That's what hurt me so much about this game, is it could have been great. Conceptually, it could have been the best Dragon Age we've ever had. What hurt me the most out of all of that, probably the one thing that hurt me the most, was the origin stories. Again, origin stories. This game was perfect for origin stories because they already set it up. They already did the hard part, where your faction that you choose, it plays a big role going on through the game. When you meet the Antivan Crows, they know you, and there's a lot of dialogue in the lighthouse. You set up your room based on the faction that you chose. This game was perfect to do origin stories again. Can you imagine if you played through that initial story of the Antivan Crows? Rook is a newly appointed, fully fledged Antivan Crow, and he struggles with the cautious behavior of the Antivan Crow superiors, considering the occupation of the Antam in Antiva. So one night he sees a bunch of captives held by the Antam and he decides to save them. And this unfortunately interfered with a larger operation, and he basically gets sidelined by the Antivan Crow superiors. Now, that's a very quick synopsis, but can you imagine if you actually played through that? If it was written properly, then you would have given Rook that choice. Do I help these people, or do I stick to my orders? And in that process, you could have met Varric for the first time. And basically, like Duncan in Dragon Age Origins, you could have met Varric, and then once all the shit hits the fan, then the option could have come where Varric offers him a position to help hunt down Solus, right? That would have been awesome, but they didn't do it. They didn't use it. They could have, but they didn't. And the game is so much worse for it. Instead, it's just a little bit of text. Could have been the best Dragon Age game ever, and they fucked it up. There's no other word for it. And finally, just to add insult to injury, if you go through the game, you'll find that they basically say that the whole south of Thedas is destroyed, that the Darkspawn has overwhelmed it, it's just gone. I mean, they could have just left it. They could have just left it there, not said anything about it. They've already told us that our previous choices were not going to matter in this game. Terrible as that is, they could have just left it there. They could have just said, it's fine. Just imagine that it didn't happen for now, just for this story. But then they had to go, and through codex entries and little bits and bobs, they basically destroyed the entire south of Thedas, rendering everything you've done as a player up to now for the past 15 years pointless. So, there it is. It's done. It's over. 10 years of waiting. We can close the book on Dragon Age. It's done. Time to move on. It's time to say goodbye to Dragon Age. Say goodbye to the franchise. I will hold the first 3 games, especially Dragon Age Origins, in high regard forever. It'll still be one of my favorite franchises of all time. But Veilguard proved to me Dragon Age is gone. And time to let it go. Anyway, that's my rant. It's not really a review. It's more of a rant. I think there's a tiny, small minority of people, you know, the gender-obsessed crowd and I don't know who else. Maybe some really casual gamers who stumble upon this thing, and I don't know why they would play it, because I don't even know who the hell this game was made for. Okay, that's it. Dragon Age Veilguard, done. Thank you for watching if you got this far, and have a good day. Cheers, everybody.